We're talking indoor range today, and this is Can We Chat?
This podcast was made possible by our sponsors, FT3, Orange County's premier indoor shooting range, and Pinnacle Firearms Training, CCW, Fundamentals, and Advanced Gun Handling. Live defensively minded.
What's going on? My name is Paul G., Chief Safety Officer for the IDPA. This channel will help you clarify IDPA rules, shooting techniques, and inform you of the newest gear and what's going on in the shooting community. If you're new here, consider subscribing. Well, today, welcome our team sponsor, my coach, dear friend, and range manager, Michael Hernandez. Very nice to see you. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Wow.
I like the dear friend part. I didn't realize it was a thing going on.
It's very personal.
I know it is.
How long have we known each other?
Oh, man. I don't know.
Back into the TJ days.
Yeah, back in the TJ days. So probably close to a decade now.
Wow.
It goes by fast.
Yeah.
It goes by fast.
Very fast. So you're now the leader of this establishment, right?
Yeah, in some ways.
FT3?
FT3 Tactical, yeah, here in Stanton.
So when was this developed?
FT3? FT3's been here since 2011. So they've been around for 2011. I joined them in 2014.
Okay.
And I think about 2020, I think I became the range manager. So I started off as an RSO. I've been working with TJ about doing instruction and things like that, and was an instructor. So I came in as an RSO instructor. And then the structure was kind of a bit different back then. We had, there was some changes over, and they didn't have a personalized instructor or a dedicated instructor here. So when they made some management changes and did some stuff, I went ahead and took that position over, stepping away from RSO, and then took over chief RSO position, took over that role as the instructor. And then at the same time, they kind of brought in some outside instructors.
That's very busy.
It is very busy.
So
I was doing that for a long time. I developed a whole bunch of programs here, was doing a ton of stuff with TJ, my own stuff, instructing here.
Right.
I was a full-time 7-day-a-week instructor. It was pretty crazy for.
So this actually has 28 lanes of madness downstairs.
Yeah,
two full shop.
Ranges, 2 full ranges, 28 lanes, 25 yards. We've got a good retail service.
Right.
And we have very specific retail that's really designed for people coming into range that need things. Bags, cleaning gear, small amounts of parts. We don't sell firearms. But we do rent over 170 different firearms, off roster and on roster.
Okay.
So, we're trying to get, it's been good for us this year with all the new roster changes. So we've got a whole bunch of, almost virtually every gun that's available. We have a version of, so you can come try it. And everything that's not available that you still would like to try, you can come down and try that. So we have long guns, short guns. We're one of the few ranges that allow you to shoot both shotgun, rifle, and handgun.
Yes. So you actually have challenges as well, handgun and rifle, which I participated. That was the first time I ever got to shoot a 5.56 indoor. Yeah. And that gets pretty crazy.
It can be. It's kind of fun. Yeah. We haven't had a rifle challenge in a while just because the schedule's been really tough. But we're trying to get it back on for at least for 2025. We'd love to bring a rifle challenge back. That's one of our biggest requested things. Bring back the rifle challenge.
Yeah, it's something that definitely a perishable skill.
It is.
Yeah. So I just love the variety. It's almost like an IDPA match, but with rifles, which is even better.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have the rifle challenge here at FT3 right now due to scheduling, but I do offer rifle monthly. I have a class every month on rifles, sometimes 2, like fundamentals rifle, how to run your rifle, and then I definitely have an advanced rifle every single month. So we do offer rifle, but that challenge is a ton of fun. And we're working really hard to bring that back.
Awesome.
It's one of our most popular.
So I know that 5.56s are, they give off a lot of exhaust and smoke and so forth, but the ventilation here is just amazing.
We do pride ourselves on that. Our ventilation system, we keep very clean. We have regular services on our ventilation system. We're always improving our ventilation system. But yes, we pass every air quality test that you can imagine, because with a lot of our law enforcement and government contracts, we're tested on a regular basis. They bring outside vendors in, and they have to, because they can't even be here if they don't meet certain air quality standards. So we meet and exceed those air quality standards for every agency here. So we have a great air system.
You have quite a few agencies that come in and out of here.
We do.
So actually, they bumped into 2 of them downstairs. So.
Yep. Currently, right now, today we have LA Port here and Orange County DA.
So. Oh man! Well, thank you very much for allowing us to have this time to talk and so forth. So, what other? So you have like 8 vendors that are teaching here.
No, actually, we have about 22 different outside members that teach here.
But I noticed that the majority of them all are doing like CCW training.
Yep. Yeah. Well, Orange County is fortunately very liberal in its ideas about CCW. It's kind of an odd word to use that, but they're very open about doing CCW. So there's a number of instructors that are available.
Right.
There's been big changes this year in CCW. They now have to go to an 8-hour renewal course and a 16-hour.
Which you had to change your credentials and so forth as well, right?
Yeah, a lot of the CCW instructors we all had to go through. It was originally going to be this whole complicated post thing and a bunch of other stuff, and now it's just the DOJ finally said, okay, just do what you've been doing, and we'll recognize the NRA again. They originally pulled away the NRA certification. They weren't going to recognize that up front.
But they didn't have any options.
They didn't have any options. So a bunch of people ran out. Some people managed to get post. The rest of us just kind of waited it out, and the DOJ kind of came to their senses and like, oh, okay, well, you're right. It's been working great for all this time, so we'll leave it there. But they did not recognize USCCA, which I thought was interesting. They actually kept them out of it, and then you still have to get a DOJ approval certificate after you submit basically your same stuff that you would submit to the sheriff's department, and everything goes from there.
Do you think? Your thoughts? You think they're just making this up, or as they go along, or what?
I think they are in a lot of ways. There was the oversight by the sheriff's department on the instructors was always very good. The downside is that anytime you have a group of people that are authorized to teach something that doesn't have very specific parameters to it,
right.
You're always going to have outliers that cheat the system and do things that are shorter. But making them go and get new qualifications doesn't mean they're not going to apply those same shortages to the training that they're doing. So it doesn't resolve that. I am happy about the fact that they extended the amount of time it takes for your initial training.
Okay.
Working with All Safe Defense as the CCW group that I've always worked with, we've always done a 16-hour class regardless of what the standards were. So it wasn't a big transition for us to change over and go, okay, now we have to do 16 hours. It was for a lot of instructors. Some instructors, for a while, before there were standards put in, it was like they would do very, very short classes for initial.
Right.
And then eventually it was like, okay, we got to do at least a 4-hour class.
Right.
So they're like, okay, well, they were here for 4 hours. So it got tough, but we were talking about people carrying guns.
Yeah, is that getting to the point where it's financially, are they just trying to make a profit rather than make sure that somebody who carries is prepared correctly? Or
I think in any industry, you're always going to have people that are profit driven.
Right. But as you said, these guys are carrying guns, and shouldn't they look at it differently here?
You would think they would. They really would. It's kind of ironic because last night we did a renewal and we had 21 students,
right?
Which is a pretty big renewal class to do. So we shoot them in phases and do their shooting part. And they're coming back tonight for all their classroom portion and stuff. But it's amazing to me that how many of those people, and we do that every month. So every month, we see these same people that come through. Not the same people, but we see the same idealistic person that comes through. I've been carrying the gun for 2 years. I now have to renew.
Right.
And you always talk to me, go, well, hey, when was the last time you shot the gun? 2 years ago at renewal. And it's like, really? And it shows, and it's tough. So, we have to remediate them. We got to help them. We got to work them through, maybe reshoot them. We've had lots of people pull a gun out that they've been carrying around for 2 years. They haven't serviced it, haven't cleaned it, and it doesn't fire.
You speak of carrying around for 2 years. Are these guys that just like newly purchased a firearm, or are guys just carrying guns around?
Typically on the renewals, you'll have people that are renewing their license. They had their license for a minimum of 2 years. They could have had it even for 10 or 12 years. And we always have a good portion of those people that are like, yeah, well, I haven't shot this in 2 years.
Right.
And they literally pull it out of their holster.
Yeah.
They haven't taken it out of the holster in 2 years, so it's just, it's got lint, dust, and they go to shoot it and nothing happens. And it's like, well, I'm glad you didn't have an encounter. So it's frustrating from an instructor standpoint to be, you should be doing something on a regular basis when it comes to CCW. It's just
then
pulling your gun out.
You have the other side of the coin, right? Which would be me, and that's actually how I started CCW carry, and then it turned into competition, and because I was practicing so much, and then I wanted more and to get better, and now it's full on, touring and sponsors and craziness, and which is not good either, right?
Well, you get really busy. You think about it. I see in my years, I've kind of noticed that there's 3 types of students.
Yeah.
Because I'm one of the few instructors left that still has a basic class. I do advanced stuff, but I also have a basic class. So in my basic class, I kind of give them 5 reasons why they're there. And I mean, jokingly, it's, hey, I saw a line, so I got in it, you know, kind of thing. The sky's falling, which I get a lot of. You know, the sky's coming down, and after 80 years on the planet, I suddenly need a gun, and I'm like, you know, maybe a dog. You know, we get a lot of that. We get a lot of, hey, my typical people are that late 30s, early 40s. The kids are finally out of the house, so one of the partners or the other's like, okay, you can have the gun now. And it's like, okay, so they want to do that. A lot of people come in, they're like, well, I'm going into the military, so I would like some exposure to a firearm. And I'm like, okay, well,
that's a good idea.
It is a good idea, to a certain extent, a little bit. Maybe to get that first blush out of it, and you know, take that percussion, percussion out of it. So the downside is that, you know, you're probably not going to shoot a pistol unless you get to certain areas in the military. We get that. We have a lot of people who they want to be CCW. They want to carry. They have reasons for it, or they want something for home defense. So we kind of go through all those, and then out of that, say you have a class of we usually run about 10, 15 people in a basic. You'll get about 2 of them that will come again and do what the next level would be skills. Where we have a skills class, which is specifically about what happens when your gun doesn't go pew. Right. Why it does that. More about trigger control, more about stance. We delve into those things quite a bit more depth. So you get 2 to those 3 people. And then they'll accomplish that. They'll feel a bit more confident. They'll finally decide on the gun they want to buy. So they'll go out and purchase a firearm. And then about maybe 1 or 2 of them will then carry on to the next level, which would be fundamentals, and eventually they get to advanced. And maybe they have a competitional goal. They want to, hey, eventually I want to get in a competition. I want to shoot IDPA. I want to shoot one of these other things I'm seeing. Or they get very defensively oriented, or they just really enjoy the sport of shooting, and they find it relaxing. And then the rest of people just trickle off. And then maybe you might see them again. They're like, oh, you know, it's been like 6 months. Work got really busy. You know, I don't remember anything you taught me. Can I take basic again? Sure. They come through. Maybe they buy a firearm. Maybe they load it. Maybe they put it on their pillow and they let it be at that point. So.
I mean, I always find myself coming back for fundamentals. I thought your fundamentals was rock solid, and that's just a basis. And so I always come back every year to try to refresh that and make sure that I lose those habits that I have from IDPA or competition shooting. Right. So, but. Brand new shooters just purchase a gun. What is the protocols for dealing with those types of students?
Well, again, in basic, a lot of people I always ask who brought a gun with them, and some people have. It's interesting how they get them there. You know, I had a little lady one time had it in a white paper bag on the front seat all the way to the range. You know, so it depends. Either they've purchased it for themselves, which is rare. It's been purchased for them, or they've received it from somebody. So those are kind of 3 circumstances.
So do you begin with like just well, let's probably start there, or
okay, yeah, let's start there. So we'll assume they have purchased it for themselves. So they may or may not have sold a good gun. And again, this is the sad part about this is really frustrating is that a significant amount of women want to purchase firearms. Because it's a great equalizer, and unfortunately here in the state, it's very difficult to do dedicated women's things in the state of California.
But you do.
We do.
You managed to do
I managed to do it for quite a long time. We had a wonderful program called Lady Shooting League, which was huge in Orange County. It was one of the biggest women's groups. But it became, some of the changes in the law make it very difficult to have specifically stated dedicated events for women here in the state of California. So it makes it a little harder. So we still do the best we can, but we do have to allow anybody into those events. We can no longer have isolated, insulated, specialized things here in the state of California. So
you're kidding me?
No, I'm not. It's very difficult, actually.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, me too.
I didn't even know that stuff like this was actually occurring.
Yeah, there's been lawsuits over it. You know, it's been a difficult situation at times. So we do our best we can. But again, our basics, I would say that my basics are 80% women.
Okay.
The downside is they've gone to a gun store. And the guy behind the counter hasn't taken into any consideration of the things they've said, and people are typically biased when they look at firearms, and this goes across genders. They want something, they think that it's smaller is better. The downside about smaller is obviously capacity, and we already have limitations on capacity here in the state of California, so you're going to make that worse. And then you take the fact that you obviously have more recoil with the gun. So they usually get sold either a 38 special snub nose, or they get sold some small little SIG P238 or something of that nature, and they like it because again, they think that it fits their hand well. They think it fits in their future plans of I want to carry this eventually, so it's going to be an easy thing to carry. And then they come and shoot it, and they find out it's a terrible experience. And then you have to tell them that, well, unfortunately, you can't return this. It's not Nordstrom's. I can't just walk the gun back and go, well, it doesn't work for me. Give me another one.
So, after 9 years of competition, I finally went back to a division that I didn't want to shoot, which is backup guns, which is the small sub nose. It was a 2000 SK HK that I was using. And I thought...
that's not a small gun.
Well, it's like the borderline to the small gun.
It is.
But it still falls in that division that, I only get 6 shots that I get to compete with. And I thought that was probably the hardest platform I ever had to learn and become, accomplished with. So,
well, I always recommend to people that if you're going to buy your first gun,
yeah,
don't buy the smallest gun.
No.
Buy a full-size gun because, number one, it's much easier to shoot.
Yeah.
The controls are better laid out. You're going to have a much more enjoyable time. It co-signs with this. If you don't like what you own, you're not going to shoot it. So if you don't shoot it, you don't get the practice. But if you do like what you own, you're going to shoot it more. You'll get more confident, and then you can translate those skills down to a smaller firearm.
Yeah, that gun. It took a little bit of time, but still. But as soon as you get a hold of the recoil, it turned into a fantastic gun. I thought.
Well, they can be. Yeah, small guns are great, but they all have their purpose.
It's just small,
but they are challenging.
Yeah, very challenging.
A lot of small guns to me are unfortunately just don't fit my hand very well, so I end up having to shoot them single-handed, which makes it harder. Right. Yeah. So the smallest I'll go is maybe like a Hellcat Pro, or even I'm a fan of. I didn't get a lot of hate for this, but from California, look at my perspective. I'm limited. We only had about 5 guns you could choose from for carry, so the shield was okay, but that size about the smallest I could comfortably shoot. That's that frame size. Yeah. And then when they came out with the Shield Plus, here in California, we're finally graced with that. That helped because that grip is a little bit thicker.
Well, they have the SIG, right? So
365, which is to me a original 365 is a very tiny gun for my hand, and it is a single-handed operation for me. So I don't get 2 hands because if I put 2 hands on it, I'm covering the muzzle. Right. So again, that's a single. So I always thought I get 2 365s and I have 20 rounds on me. I just shoot one out of each hand.
But they have a macro.
They do. So, they do now have a macro available.
I think is the perfect size, right?
Macro's a good size gun.
Very comfortable. Yeah,
it is.
What's the pros and cons of an indoor range, though?
Well, the pros of an indoor range is that no matter what the weather is, we're good to go.
All right, good point. Because it's 90 degrees outside and it's
120 in the range, so it's great. No, it's we're not 100% climate controlled. It's not like Arizona. You go to Arizona ranges, they're air conditioned, but they're also a lot more expensive to shoot at. We have a system that does cool the range. But the indoor range, the nice part about it is that it is a much more controlled environment. Yeah. You do have a better ventilation system. It's ironic because people think that, well, indoor ranges are dirtier than outdoor ranges. Right. But they're not. A good, well-maintained indoor range like FT3 is actually significantly cleaner than any outdoor range. Because the problem is that in outdoor ranges, there isn't a ventilation system. No. So the lead just kind of falls.
It's just a dirt box.
It's just a dirt box. Yeah. And that lead's sitting on that dirt box. Every time you walk and kick it up, you're kicking up that lead dust. The backstops are not cleaned in the same amount of method as ours is. Yeah. Every quarter, we're cleaning our backstops. So the level of that we shoot here, just to give you some idea, typically one of our backstops will produce about 30,000 pounds of lead in 4 months.
And how often do you have to?
We clean our ranges every 4 months.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That can't be cheap.
No, but the recycling ability on the lead actually helps offset that cost quite a bit. So it works out.
That's right. Well. So they recycle it, right?
Yeah. So it's part of the cons of owning a range, I suppose. Not that I own the range, but running a range is that the maintenance upkeep is very expensive because virtually everything downrange gets shot. Right. So we're always repairing stuff, which is funny. The staff's always, the shot. It's like you have to understand everything from the firing line, guys, is going to get hit. It's just
it's funny and it's remarkable that your prices for renting a bay or so forth is actually quite economical.
We like to think we're very competitive for that. Right. Yeah, $25 for 2 hours during the week and 1 hour on the weekends. So I think is a good value for what you're getting. An additional person is only $15, and we haven't significantly raised that price in years. Right. We've been open since 2011, and I think that price when we originally opened was somewhere around maybe $12 or $15. and we've gone to 25.
Right.
That's
right.
been like 3 years ago. So we're very steady about holding our prices.
Which I'm very thankful for. One of the gripes that I had with indoor range is cadence. You can't shoot at cadence, but here at FT3, there's holster, right? Certification.
We do allow that. We have something called holster qualified, which again is pretty unique for a range. There's classes that we offer. You can come in on the weekend in a class and you learn how to draw from a holster.
Right.
Two things happen. You're really there to learn the procedures and rules for FT3 to use a holster on the range during normal business hours.
Right.
If you haven't drawn from a holster before or want to learn how to do it, that's a great class there because we have Bryce Melendez is an excellent instructor.
Yeah.
And I started that class originally, and then I gave it over to him, and he does a great thing in there, and he really gets people squared away because, again, in a holster class, you got either people who are working off of battle belts with outside base holsters, competition base holsters. You got people working
USPSA stuff.
USPSA stuff. They're working from in waistband, and those are all different holster draws.
Yes.
So he works you through all that, so you can come and do that safely here at FT3. And then, of course, you obviously learn the rules about using your holster at FT3. But that does allow you then to shoot at a higher rate.
Do you do appendix as well?
Yep. Yeah, you can do appendix.
No kidding.
Yeah, we'll teach you how to run appendix.
That's insane.
Yeah, we do have other limitations. I mean, you can visit the website and see the limitations. We don't allow certain holsters or certain positions of holsters for practical purposes.
Right.
But once you're that way, we do offer during the week, typically 2-3 Fridays, almost all day long, and then 2 or 3 days during the week. You can come in, pay a little extra fee, and we have a number of lanes that the table flips up out of the way, and you can come and shoot holster, which allows you then to shoot at a higher rate. So yes, you can increase your cadence rate. You can shoot a little closer, and you can use your timers. You have a lot of guys come in and train and stuff.
Very cool. I just worried about that. You just get to shoot at one target, so multiple targets was another pet peeve of mine. But you actually have events that has multiple targets out there. So
we do.
What like reps, right?
Reps. Well, there's a number of ways that we do different things. Here we have FT3 programs that allow you to shoot everything. And what you're kind of referring to is my program called Pinnacle,
right? Which is one of our sponsors, right?
Which is a great sponsor of Speed Kings and. So I've been teaching now for over a decade as an instructor, and I'm
tell us about
very privileged that FT3 allows me to continue to do that.
I'm appreciative of that. So
REPS is a program that I developed called Rapid Exercises in Pistol Shooting. It's actually evolved now to we actually have a shotgun reps, we have a rifle reps, and we now have a CCW reps.
You just duplicated that with
we have a low light reps too. We have 5 reps. We kind of rotate them through each month. Each month is different reps. It's really not a training class in the sense that you're not going to come in, get the lecture, work on a specific skill.
No.
It's 5 to 6 tasks that I like to look at them. We'll explain the task to you, demonstrate the task, and you get multiple opportunities to run through that task. So it's usually 1, 2, 3, 4 times you get to try that task. And they're each designed to test a different skill. So you can find out where you're performing and where you're not performing.
Right.
So then you can work on your things you need to work up on. It's really designed to make you fail. All of my training is designed to make you fail.
And fail you will.
You will. Yeah, that's kind of the point. I've always viewed training, and I think it's interesting because I try to get my students on the mindset that when you come to the range to train, especially with me, I will say specifically with me, that my goal is that you do fail, and it's not to punish you. I want you to understand that when you're coming in, you're learning something new typically when you come into a class, or you're trying to work on something you learned in a previous class, and a training class should be a very safe environment for failure, because this is where you're going to screw up here so you don't screw up on the street or screw up at home or screw up on competition,
so you can fix it.
We encourage that
absolutely,
and we help foster that this is safe. Come in, make the mistakes, don't be hard on yourself. Let's look at why those mistakes are happening. Let's correct each part that's building that mistake until you get to the point of success. Once you get to that point of success, great. Let's go start a new skill that you're going to fail at, and it's that constant
and keep
cycle.
And
keep on going.
Regenerating, absolutely.
So it's failure in a very positive light.
So the range itself, the lanes are only 25 yards.
Correct.
A lot of people kind of frown upon that. I don't even know why they would want anything more than 25 yards, but most of them is handgun. But when you get into the rifles and so forth, 25 yards. You think the range is short?
No, I don't. I mean, sure, I would love to have a lane that's 100 yards for guys who want to come in and zero.
I can't even see that far.
I know. I'd love to have a 50-yard range for people who want to come in and zero.
Right.
But from a practical standpoint, 25 yards is more than enough, because you have to think about, in an urban environment where you're really be using your rifle, inside your home where you're going to be really using your rifle if you're using it. And, if you want to shoot and simulate farther distances, shoot smaller targets. So, I see these people hang these giant targets out there at 25 yards, and they're like, look how good I'm doing. It's like, you are, but, it's not going to translate to farther distances. So one of the things I always work on with students, especially in fundamentals, is once you've mastered that 3 or 5 yard distance, and you're very comfortable at that.
Right.
You have to get uncomfortable, and you need to start shooting at 10 and 15.
Right.
And if you can maintain that consistency at 10 or 15, then you've accomplished something, and then you're doing really well. Just, look how good I am at 3. Yes, you've got those base fundamentals down, but it's really masking some significant problems, which are going to appear as soon as you move out to 7 and 10 and 15.
Right.
You'll start seeing, well, why are my groups, 3.5 times bigger? Well, we have some fundamental issues, but they never go there. So, if you're doing 25 and you're consistent, then you've got some good fundamentals going on.
So you also have one-on-one, right? Mm-hmm. So private training, which I've always taken advantage of. It's just you and me out there, and you're just teaching me a specific task that I need to learn. I always thought that was amazing. But are you available to other shooters?
I am, very selectively.
Okay.
I don't have a tremendous amount of time. I am. So it's kind of like a secret club now. So if you get a recommendation from a good friend, you can come and knock on my door, and I'll help you out.
You could always count on me.
Yeah. Get to know Paul, and maybe he'll give you the passcode.
Right.
But what I have substituted that with is Trish Caselli is one of my instructors. She's phenomenal. She's very, very good. She's been with me for years. She takes on a lot of my other stuff. So I embode her with my trust that if you're learning from her, you're essentially learning from me, because I have worked very hard to hone her where she is, and she's absorbed all of that. So she, I guess, for lack of a better word, kind of teaches in my style. Yeah. And she has embodied that very well and takes that in. So she's great. But I have I don't know how you put this so it doesn't sound terrible, but there's a select group of people that I still train with one-on-one that I built relationships with, like you, Paul, obviously. And I wish I had more time for it. It was one of those interesting choices that when they came to me and said, hey, we'd really like you to be the range manager, I'm like, I'm going to have to give up a lot of stuff. And I really did. I barely shoot anymore, which is frustrating. Right. I used to shoot 5, 6, 7 days a week, and now I shoot maybe twice. And that's usually a demo in class, which is the hardest kind of shooting to do as an instructor, because you're having to talk, demonstrate, and not screw it up in front of everybody. And then that's about it.
Yeah, but you're herding cats now.
And I'm herding cats a lot. I used to herd cats all the time, but I got to shoot a lot more.
But you're really good at it, though.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at herding cats. But and then lesson-wise, if I can, it's never the downside about taking a private lesson with me. It's not going to be at your convenience. It's going to be at my convenience.
Right.
And,
absolutely.
And that's the hard part.
You're right. Yeah. Which is okay too, right?
So, if you really want it.
Right. But so during the week, you can shoot. There's every once in a while there's lead and coffee, right? Which I thought was fantastic.
Lead and coffee is a great FT3 program that I run. So the idea is we always try to have steps for you. So once you do the holster qualifier, you're now qualified loosely for lead and coffee, which means because lead and coffee is a holster class. So it's a downrange class. If you've never been in a class downrange, it's a great place to start. It's in the morning. It starts at 9:30, usually goes to about 11. The class run sizes, it varies. It could be 6 people, it could be 14 people. But if you've never been in a class, that's okay. It's a very easygoing class. We'll teach you the class structure, because class structure for most instructors is about the same. So we'll teach you the safety things you need to understand about a class, the proper etiquette in a class, and then we'll work on things you need to work on. So I keep the classes very open. I usually come in with some idea of what I want to do in the class, what kind of a goal, but I will typically, we do a warm-up session on these targets that, with the black ball targets, the torture targets, and I'll observe the class, watch what's going on, and then we'll usually address those particular issues. So the class will kind of get skewed by what the students' needs are, and that's generally how I like to teach, is like, what do the students really need today? What am I seeing? And then we'll do a talk around and be like, hey, what is it? What do you feel you need to work on this? Why'd you come? And then I will kind of formulate the class on the fly there to meet those needs, so the students are walking out with something that they really need, not really what they're coming for. Because a lot of times they'll be like, oh, I really want to do low light, or I want to do speed shooting, but they're not capable of those things yet. So we try to and lead and coffee be that flexibility that will tune that class up.
They have a whole variety of levels of shooters that actually
lead and
attend,
coffee is one of the widest ranges of shooting that I get. I'll have advanced guys down on this end that are like Paul will be there, and other guys of his caliber and class. Then some people in the middle, and then some guy who's well. I got out of basic. I went to holster, and this is the fourth time I've shot my gun, but I've never been in a class.
Right. And there's a lot of women that show up. And,
yes.
And that's insane. I was like, wow, there's a lot of women shooters out here, which I don't usually see very often. So
yeah, well, I mean, Pinnacle has a huge female base. We're about 50% women in almost all of our classes. Lead and Coffee has a huge female base. It's really interesting. We see a lot more female shooters these days, which I think is just indicative of society pushing on things and the gun culture loosening up a little bit. There's a lot of old fighty guys who are like, women don't belong. Yes, they do. Everybody deserves to be able to shoot.
Right.
So, and I think that's also in part of the spirit of FT3. I mean, as a range, FT3, we have a core driving mandate that says we accept everybody here. So, I mean, we get other ranges to go, we don't want to teach you. Go to FT3. We'll deal with this new shooter that doesn't know what they're doing. We love that. Hey, you've never picked a gun up before? Come to FT3. We'll help you out.
Oh, yeah.
So we're one of the few ranges that actually welcomes people who haven't shot. And I think that stays because a lot of women haven't. They haven't had experiences or they've had very negative experiences because their significant others brought them here and decided that, hey, we're going to start you on that 44 Magnum just because it's fun. And they have a terrible experience and they come back and have a better one with them. So we try to help everybody out.
I believe the main reason why I've not only become a member here, it was just because of safety. Mm-hmm. You have a huge staff. Mm-hmm. You have a tremendous army of volunteers that help you out and so forth. Tell us about who's following you.
Who's following me?
Who's surrounding you?
Who's surrounding me?
Supporting staff.
My phenomenal staff. We're open long time. I mean, we're noon to 10 every day.
That's why you
Monday
have
through Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 10 to 10. So we're open a long day.
So you have like 4 assistant managers?
We have 4 assistant managers that are here. They're great. They run the downstairs for me, and they take care of that. They do a wonderful job there. And then we've got a ton of RSOs, and the majority of our RSOs are all RSO trained, obviously, and a lot of them are instructors.
Right.
So we try to get all of our RSO red shirts to become minimum pistol instructors. We love them to be rifle instructors and shotgun instructors, and we facilitate that for them if they don't already bring that to the table.
Right.
Because we offer obviously a lot of training. We want our RSOs to not only be range safety officers out there protecting the range, protecting their clients, but when you need it, they can step up and do full instruction for you. So we offer not only quick start classes where you can sign up online, where you can come in and get a 40-minute lesson one-on-one with an instructor. Wow. It's a basic oriented lesson. You shoot on a 22. You're going to just do it with a 22. Yeah. But it kind of takes that edginess off of coming to a range.
Right.
It's $75. You can walk in. We provide the ammo, the gun, the targets, everything for you. 40 minutes. You're going to learn range safety rules. You're going to learn basic firearm safety. Yeah. And you go out on the range and you shoot with a guy. You shoot with one of our instructors. And you just learn how to kind of be at the range and get your first experience with a firearm. And then if you want to stay, you can stay and shoot other guns if you want to on top of that. You can bring your own firearm if you choose to. We'll help you with your gun. And then if you've accomplished that and you want some more time, we do offer a one-on-one for an hour, which is $150. And again, you can request a specific RSO if you had a positive experice with one, which you get a ton of, a lot of return customers. Or you just put a general in and go, hey, I want to do this. Maybe I want to, a lot of people are still looking for firearms. Yeah. So we encourage them, hey, in that 1 hour block or even that 40-minute block, you just come in and let us know you want to do a gun tasting, and we'll set you up and we'll talk to you about what kind of gun you're looking for, and we'll let you sample out a number of firearms so you can kind of get a better idea of what you want to do before you go and make that permanent purchase. So that's a nice thing too.
Fascinating.
Yeah, we always tell people too, it's like if you're thinking about a gun at one of the local stores, before you buy that thing, come down. We probably have it. Try it and see if you like it.
So how would they try it? Just shoot a mag and
they can rent the gun and come out and shoot some ammunition through it, and they're like, wow, I really don't like this gun at all. I'm glad I didn't buy it. Do you have any other recommendations? Sure, why don't you try this guy? Yeah. And and we'll keep you in California, obviously rostered firearms. Right. And you can go through and try the different guns and maybe find one that you weren't thinking about that fits you better, works better with you, because again, purchasing a firearm is a very personal thing, and that gun's got to work for you.
Absolutely.
So, I really set on this gun because, everybody carries this gun. Oh, okay. Well, let's start with that one. Right. And they realize, yes, that does work for me. Or, man, why does everybody make this choice? I don't know. They do. A lot of people like it. and then we'll work you through other guns.
Do they? Do you have like a simple, like a drill that they can shoot standing?
We do.
At a target and so forth?
When we have basic, when you're working with an instructor, we do run them through a specific drill.
So down here on the range, we're downrange. We're set up at 10 yards. I've put out a target that comes along with what we call the Range Day 50 drill. And it's a great way to come in and work on some really core fundamentals, which is 50 rounds. So it's not a very expensive drill to do, but it will work on some single hand, offhand, and cadence drills and other things for you at different distances. So it comes with the target set and the instructions, very simple. I'm going to demonstrate one of the drills now, which is at 10 yards. We're sitting out here at 10 yards. We've got a triangle target out there. We're going to shoot 5 rounds, slow fire, two-handed, change our magazine, because we're going to go to slide lock, reload the magazine, and increase our cadence a little bit, and keep repeating that drill until we get to a cadence point that we're shooting outside of that triangle. So it's just kind of working on those different things. So let's go ahead and get that started. So we're at 10 yards. We're going to take just a nice 5 slow fire round, come up, get those taken care of. All right. So first shots for the day after a couple of weeks. We're right in that triangle, a little looser group than we like. We're going to increase that cadence now and see if we can shoot that a little bit tighter, a little bit better, and see if we can get going a little nicer. Good there. We'll try it again, see if we can speed up a little bit. So ultimately what we end up with, about 15 rounds. We can see that we're staying in that triangle. We're at 10 yards and our cadence is picking up, picking down a little bit. We're trying to stay as steady as we can, but we'll work on that recoil control, recovery, and trigger control with that Range Day 50.
But what's the most bizarre thing you've ever seen while teaching that a student has done?
The most bizarre thing I've ever seen teaching? Man, I mean, I definitely have like, I can't count how many guns were pointed at me. I can't,
I mean, loaded guns or?
Loaded gun. Oh yeah. Loaded guns all the time, especially in CCW classes, because you're they're there to learn, but they don't have. Typically, your average CCW student does not have enough experience to be carrying a gun in this condition. They just don't.
Right.
They just really don't. And I don't want to take away the ability for somebody who feels they need to protect themselves to do that. So it's our responsibility to get them trained up as quickly as we can. Oh. But it's hard because they don't have.
That is a tough job.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't. Sure, when I became, I've been involved for firearms for over 20 years, and I always wanted to carry a gun, but I never felt I had enough experience to do that.
Right.
So I wanted to make sure that I was super comfortable with firearms before I ever decided to carry one on my person every day.
Oh yeah. I remember the first time I strapped one on. I'm sitting there like, let's not touch that thing, right? Because it's a loaded gun, right? Yeah. And I'm like, oh man, that took me a while to get used to.
Well, the hardest thing too, especially as an instructor, and I think for people too who carry on a regular basis, is not to get lazy about it. I mean, I still force myself, every day.
Absolutely, absolutely.
When I come home, it stays in the holster, but it comes out because I carry a gun every day at FT3.
Right.
I carry a gun every day that I'm out and about in my concealed carry because of what I do. People know what I do. They know who I am. I am.
Right.
So, and there's plenty of people as manager of the range I've pissed off. It's just the life.
No. Come on.
Sorry, sir, but you shot our ceiling 27 times in the stall, so you got to go.
Do you get that a lot, or
do we get that? Come to the range and look at the ceiling.
No.
We try not. It's amazing.
Come on.
Well,
it's a ceiling.
It is, but you have to understand too that when you work at a range, you're getting the widest spectrum of shooting capability. We're getting people like you who walk in the door that we don't have a secondary concern about because we already know who you are. We've seen you shoot. You're championship level national shooter. The probability of you hitting our ceiling is extremely low, and if it is, then you and I are going to go have an extra lesson. Right?
Yeah, and I'll pay extra for that.
But your typical person who's either new to firearms or relatively new to firearms or doesn't have a lot of experience, or unfortunately has gotten poor training.
Oh, right.
You have to remember too that for every good trainer, there's probably 5 really bad trainers. So they've gotten poor training, or they've gotten no training, or their spouse is training them, or, Uncle Buck is training them, or whatever. Uncle Buck's been shooting rifles for, 100 years, and he's your deer hunter, but now he's, trying to have you shoot a Glock, and he doesn't understand there's a front sight and rear sight, and so they have the gun very low, and they can see the front sight, and they don't have muzzle awareness. So they don't have any comprehension that the muzzle's going that way, but the sight's on the target still. So they're just shooting over the top. It's really difficult. Probably the biggest problem we have with new shooters and inexperienced shooters is that muzzle awareness. They're very happy. Look, I hit the target, and they like to turn around with the gun in their hand, finger on the trigger, and wave it around and be very happy about the fact that they did successfully. So that's why we have RSOs on the range, to keep an eye on those things. But to go back to your original question, what's the strangest thing I've ever seen a shooter do? Years and years ago, and I tell all my new RSOs this story. I was an RSO. I'm sitting there on the range, and a young lady shooting. She's shooting a Glock. Doesn't really matter what she's shooting. She's shooting a gun, and she's shooting. And every now and then, I see her do this. So she's got a scratch, right? And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I know what she's going to do. I start heading to her, and she takes the gun, her finger on the trigger, and does this with it right underneath her chin, and goes back to shooting. I kid you not. I walk over there. I'm like, put the gun down. I'm like, you don't realize what you just did, because I explained it to her. She goes, no, I didn't. I said, yes, you did. Go in the bathroom. There will be a black mark across the bottom of your chin from the muzzle. And she comes back, and she's just like white as a ghost. Yeah. She's like, I had no idea that I did that. I said, I understand that. A lot of people do a significant number of things with firearms that they're not conscious of. And she was horrified. Wow. And, she was very lucky. Very lucky, because finger on the trigger.
Absolutely.
She could have, our natural thing, we would try a little harder, and that would have been a very devastating experience. So that was one of the most frightening things that I saw on the range, and one of the most bizarre things, and just the level of deniance. And I learned very early on that every time you have a conversation with somebody who's shooting and they're doing something wrong, more than 90% of the time, they're not conscious of what they're doing. They just don't have that awareness level yet. They haven't built up that awareness level. So it's something we try to train into ourselves. Don't get significantly mad at them, and don't be angry with them. I know it's frustrating for you, because you would never do that. But remember who our clients are. Our clients are typically new shooters, intermediate shooters. They don't do this all the time. They're not professionally oriented to it. It's not their main goal. They're not conscious of those things. So we have to, we always take it as an educational experience. Okay. This is what's really going on. This is what you're doing. Yes, I know you don't think you did that, but everything points to the fact that you did. And I wouldn't be here talking to you about it if you hadn't. We don't make stuff up just to go over and harass people. The last thing we want to do is bug shooters. We want them to come and enjoy themselves and have a good time. And we don't want it to be experience of, oh, here comes the guy in the red shirt, what's going to happen.
Don't tell me what to do.
We're not there to tell you what to do, as long as you're following the rules. But when you do unsafe things that you're not aware of, we're just going to make you aware of it. It's going to be, hey, you don't realize what you're doing. Like I had this one guy just the other day. I just happened to be walking out on range. I wasn't even working the range. I just went out there. I was dealing with something else, and I saw this guy. And every time he'd load the gun fine. But then he'd take it, bring it back, and do this with it.
Oh my God!
And his finger wasn't on the trigger. But I walked over to him. I said, "Sir, hey, do you realize that whenever you load your gun, you're loading fine. You're circling the gun back, and the muzzle's literally, he's down here right in front of his chest. He'd come back, so it's below his eye line, and he'd come back and shoot like this." I said, "Do you realize you're doing that?" And he's like, "No." I'm like, "Okay, that's what you're doing." He's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, you're I just watched you, walked in, walked out, watched you a couple times. You just do this and you do that. So maybe we shouldn't do that. It's not a good thing for you." And he's like, I had no idea I was doing that. So I watched him a couple more times, just kind of keep an eye on him. I always hang out whenever I correct somebody to see if they're going to take it to heart or if they're not. And so he'd load the gun like this now. He'd stick it way out there. And I said, okay, let's not overreact to the situation. Go back to the way you're loading. Your loading procedure was fine. The problem was that once you loaded it, you were tilting the muzzle back. Just don't do that. Keep the muzzle pointed in the direction you're fine after you load, and bring your hand in. Because he goes, well, I'm joining back here. I said, well, don't join there, join here. And we worked on it a little bit, and then he was fine. But he had zero. It's like when they hit the ceiling. They don't realize they're hitting the ceiling until you go, well, see all the white snow from the white ceiling tiles that's coming down in your lane? Are you sure that's not somebody else? No, sir. That's you. It's things like that. They're not cognizant of it, which can be frustrating, but you have to walk into the understanding of there's not they don't have a data point for it. They don't have experience for it. You know, you have to be as educational with them as you can. Like, this is what you're doing. Because again, I think something I've learned is that the overwhelming majority of people don't fully comprehend the consequences of firearms.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, when we're kids, we get told, hey, you either burn yourself with the hot water and you never do it again.
Right.
You know, we get told, don't run with scissors, don't stick things in electrical outlets, you know, all that kind of fun stuff.
Sure.
Don't throw the cat in the dryer, you know, things like that. Don't put your brother's head in the toilet.
Wait. Cat in the dryer.
Cat in the dryer. You know, don't do those things. But we're never, you know, guns are like, oh, stay away from that thing.
Yeah.
But we're never told, hey,
why?
Yeah. You know? And the
Yeah.
why is really important.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
people, they don't have, and you know, of course we see everything on television and in the movies is atrocious when it comes to firearms. I mean, there are some very good movies that have some phenomenal gun handling in them. But for the most part, nothing's real. There's nothing real in the movies and in television that's real about guns. Nothing.
I can't believe you just said that.
They do, you know, the guns don't act like real guns. They don't get shot like it happens in real life.
Right.
I know you could watch most movies and just watch them muzzle everything in the world.
Oh no, I watched John Wick 4 times.
And so there's, you know, so they bring that in the first person shooter games. There's no consequences to those. There's no consequences.
Right.
So they just, you know, when they're starting off, this is the one thing that new instructors really need to learn too. Is one of the hardest lessons for new instructors is that students are going to do unconsciously really absurd things with firearms.
I've seen it as well. What do you think about new shooters that are taking on Appendic Carry?
They need a lot more time. I have no problem with it. If you want to, you know, Appendic Carry obviously offers the downside of the fact that you're putting 2 very sensitive areas into high risk than you would be on the side carry. Obviously, you have your femoral artery that's there.
Pelvic injury is not a good thing.
You have your reproductive organs that could obviously be damaged.
Yeah.
Both male and female.
That's well said.
Both male and female from that standpoint, you can do a significant amount of damage there. So you have high blood flow areas that are not. You can't put a tourniquet on.
They're very difficult.
And if you're alone, you're going to make a serious mistake that's going to kill you in about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So, and people ask me that. I get that in class a lot too. I had a basic class recently, and the young lady said, "I'm very uncomfortable for you because of where your gun position is." I said, "That's interesting. Why are you concerned for my safety?" I said, "I appreciate that, but why are you concerned for well, because I mean, something terrible could happen." You know, I said, "You're right. Something could terrible. But let's discuss that." And what she didn't understand was that holsters protect the trigger.
Yes.
So, you know, I said, okay, well, I'm going to take the whole mechanism out, the holster and all, and show you what's going on. This isn't, you know, it's not Mexican carry. I just don't have this thing sitting in my waistband.
Okay.
And once she understood that was the purpose of a holster, was protect that, and then she felt better about it. Yeah, when it comes to teaching Appendic Carry, I if you want to learn it, I'll teach it to you. I'm an advocate of it. I mean, if you want the fastest carry draw, you're gonna have to carry appendix.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no other way around it.
Absolutely.
It's uncomfortable. I don't care what anybody says. They're lying to you.
Right.
It's uncomfortable. I'm sitting here with one right now, and I wish it was in a slightly different position. You know, to be honest with you, it's you know, you move around a little bit.
So you don't adjust your junk, or
no, just move the gun a little bit. There you go. We're good. So, but it's also the most protective position. You know, anywhere else on me, I'm vulnerable.
Yeah.
Especially, you know, again, in the environment that I work, I want the gun to be protected and be where I want to be. It's also easy that if I, walk outside, I need to be concealed. My shirt comes out, and I'm ready to go. Cautionary notes. You do have to take some cautionary notes with it, but I've long passed those concerns because it's still something I practice today. I dry fire my draw out of appendix on a regular basis. But the most important thing that anybody should understand carrying a gun in any position in a holster is that, yes, it's important that we get that gun into play quickly.
Yes.
But there is absolutely zero rush to put that gun away.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's what a lot of students don't understand. They think, I drive really fast, I got to put it back really fast.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Oh, no.
Absolutely not. No. The most deliberate thing you want to do is reholster a firearm. If it doesn't matter if it's appendix, if it's outside side holster, upper, waistband holster, back of you, because that's actually where you're most vulnerable because clothing's involved.
Yeah.
Your finger was the last place your finger was on the trigger.
Right.
The gun might be in a condition that you forget to decock it. if you're running a double action, there's a lot of circumstances. You're also probably in a little bit higher state of anxiety because maybe you used it defensively, maybe you just won the competition, maybe you just done whatever it is you did. You succeeded at that skill in class. You feel really good about it. The last thing you want to do is joyfully reholster that gun.
No.
So you want to stop, think, breathe, and slowly replace that firearm while you're paying attention to it. I mean, it looks very cool that you can drop a gun in without looking at it.
Yeah.
But I think and ultimately it's more important that you watch that gun go into a holster.
Oh, absolutely.
Unless you absolutely don't have to. If you're in a circumstance that, you're in the middle of a competition, you've got to transition between two weapons. No, you got to practice that drop into that holster.
Yeah.
Most likely that gun's gonna be clear anyways in a competition. But from a normal standpoint of an average person, watch it go in. It's okay.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not gonna ding you on it. Well, I'm gonna be like, great, good job.
The competition guys, I recently went to Washington State Championships, and I had a guy that actually started doing a back bend, right, and slowly put it back in. Unloaded firearm, right, and every time after he was done shooting the stage, does a back bend, make sure that the gun's pointed in front of him, and just slides it in slowly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very conscious about the fact, like I was last night at renewals doing some demos, so I'm very deliberate in the time of me. I get the gun out very quickly, but I'm very deliberate in putting that gun back into my waistband. And I have, I teach a rotational draw that keeps the muzzle pointed downrange and put you in a successful position to angle that gun in, which is muzzle away from you, angle that gun into your holster. Yeah, I mean, every single time, loaded or unloaded, you treat it exactly the same.
Well, there you have it. So what Michael has to go through to run a indoor range.
Well, that's just a smidgen. That's a day. That's like 1 hour. That's 1 hour worth of range time.
Well, a special shout out to our channel membership. This is your support, busy at work. Please consider being a part of our shooting community, building relationships around safe gun practice and IDPA competition. My name is Paul G, and this is
Michael Hernandez with FT3.
Please be safe, and we'll see you on the range.
Like, share, subscribe.
I feel like I was just getting warmed up.
I know you're starting to go. I'm like, oh shoot, this coffee's kicking in.
I'm sorry.